great to say good evening to Daniel Reis of Reis Pellicano, who's here with us tonight to talk about the Golden Visa here in Portugal. From the basics, as you can see on the screen there, from the basics to the latest news, that's what Daniel will be sharing with us this evening. Thank you for joining us, premium members of Expats Portugal. Sign up with them at all the W's, expatsportugal.com. And a big welcome to Daniel Reis, who's in the capital, in Lisbon tonight. How are you, Daniel?
Hello. I'm quite all right. Thank you for asking, Carl. And yes, indeed, I'm in Lisbon. The last few days have been a bit windy, but now it's calm. The weather is good, so can't complain. I'll go down in Lisbon.
Very good. And I know we need to focus on the presentation tonight, but maybe you'll give us a little bit of that beautiful view after the recording is over and we can see the beautiful skyline of Lisbon a little bit later on as an added bonus. So over to you, Daniel. Your presentation is loaded and ready to go.
Yes, it is indeed. I think that from starters, yes, the Golden Visa is still possible and it's still an interesting way to obtain a residency permit and to eventually obtain the Portuguese nationality if the applicant so desires. So, because this was an area that had quite a lot of turmoil in the last years, I think that this webinar is relevant just to explain that, yes, the Golden Visa is still possible. Yes, there's several routes to obtain the Golden Visa in the country, and that the program is still ongoing. The main limitation is that Golden Visas are not possible for real estate investment, and this was the most popular option at the time. That's the thing that is excluded, but apart from that, other options are available, even new options. So let's probably start with the advantages out of obtaining a Golden Visa. And what is the main difference between a Golden Visa and any other type of residency permits? I would say that for the majority of the applicants, if you really wish to reside in Portugal, a Golden Visa is a bad deal. It's more expensive, it takes more time, it indeed takes an investment, and it's not worthwhile to jump all those bureaucratic hoops and do the investment if you really wish to live full-time in Portugal, and this is spending 6 months per year plus 1 day to be a tax resident here. And this is indeed the first advantage out of the Golden Visa. It provides a residency permit in Portugal, but the applicant doesn't need to stay here full-time, and it's not mandatory to be a tax resident. Thus, you can still stay abroad in their own country and have a residency permit that will allow freedom of movement, freedom of travel, and eventually obtaining the Portuguese nationality. So I see the Golden Visa as advantageous for several types of profiles. Let's say that you are a businessman that lives in South Africa and wants a residency permit in Europe, so you can enter freely in Europe if you so desire. Or someone that is considering coming to Portugal to spend their retirement, but wants to speed up the nationality process. This is a good idea to have the Golden Visa submitted. But generally, if someone talks to me and states, well, I want to live in Portugal, Daniel, Golden Visa is a good option. I would say if you want to live in Portugal in the next 2 or 3 years, don't go the Golden Visa route. There's other routes that can be explored. But for people that don't want to live or still, it's not the correct time, but they want to speed up the nationality process, indeed, Golden Visa is a good option. So what types of benefits does the Golden Visa offer? The first one is Portugal, so quality of life, the Portuguese culture, all that it has to provide, especially the food. The food in Portugal is amazing if you don't know, and the wine as well. So careful with the red wine. And other things that offers is similar benefits as a normal residency permit. And this is being able to go into a Portuguese hospital, into the Portuguese system, and not pay FT amounts of money because you will be treated as if you were a Portuguese citizen. Then ease of travel, especially for applicants that don't have automatic Schengen visas, like, for instance, a South African that I just mentioned, or Chinese clients that don't have freedom of access to to Schengen space, having a golden visa is indeed interesting. Then the path to Portuguese citizenship that I do mention here in the presentation, the golden visa, as it's compared to any other type of residency permit, allows obtaining the Portuguese citizenship as long as the applicant does learn Portuguese. So those are the main key aspects that the golden visa offers without the necessity of living in Portugal. And the time that the applicant does need to stay in Portugal is quite low. It's only a week per year, or as the residency permit is valid for 2 years, it's 2 weeks in the validity, the period of validity of the residency permit. So it's just a small holiday in Portugal every 2 years, and the residency permit will be renewed. So those are the main advantages out of the golden visa. And then, because this changed so much, what type of options are still available? It's the job creation one, the one that entails incorporating a company here and having 10 job positions secured in Portugal. And this is, we have different types of contracts in Portugal. And when you say a work contract without a term is a fixed job position that that person is indeed having. And this entails then creating the company, opening 10 job positions, hiring those 10 people, and then submitting the golden visa. Then you have the one below. This is company incorporation and investing at least €500,000 and then hiring five people. Then it's the scientific and technological research. This again is €500,000 in an investment, and it needs to deliver a project that is considered of, well, let's say, national interest, in that people that will benefit Portugal. So these projects will need to be approved. And the same goes for cultural promotion. So, the cultural promotion, the investment is way lower. It's €250,000. But this it has some nuances. So instead of being considered an investment, this can be considered a donation. It needs to be an approved project, but once this approved project is indeed assessed and the donation is approved, the applicant will receive a golden visa. And finally, I would say that the most common path now is the one connected with the investment funds and investing €500,000 in Portugal. For US clients, there's some details, and the devil is always in the details, of course, that should be taken into consideration. Because US clients are subject to the FATCA rules. And this means that banks in Portugal need to communicate with the US authorities the investments that foreign nationals or foreign US nationals do in Portugal. This means that not all the banks are willing to do those communications because it's cumbersome, it's bureaucratic, and it does entail some red tape. So the majority of banks, when an American client comes to us and wishes to invest in a golden visa via the investment fund route, we need to open a bank account in 1 or 2 banks in Portugal. Not all the banks work with the FATCA rules. So if it's a normal real estate investment, no need to worry. The majority of banks will open and will be quite glad to have US clients as clients. But if it's connected with an investment fund, then things do change dramatically, and just 1 or 2 banks do work with American clients. For this specific type of investment, basically, a bank account needs to be open in Portugal in the name of the applicant. The money needs to be transferred from abroad to Portugal into the personal bank account of that applicant. Then the money needs to be transferred into an investment fund, and this is the full 500K. But there's some interesting nuances here, that the applicant doesn't need to invest all in the same fund. So he can invest in several funds. Let's say that he wants to split the risk between 3 funds, totally possible. Let's say that he wants to concentrate the investment in just one fund. Totally possible as well. So no, not a problem over there. This can vary, but one thing is for certain: we need declarations from the funds, one fund or several funds, stating that the money was indeed invested. So two different declarations will exist. One from the Portuguese bank stating that the 500K were transferred to Portugal and stating that that money was then forwarded to funds, and then declarations from the funds stating that the money was received and that the money was invested in those funds. And there's really a lot of different funds in Portugal connected with renewable energies, sustainable tourism, green energies, digital transition, hospitality. So there's really a lot of options targeted for several types of different profiles of clients. And if the client has an area that he already knows, usually my advice is, well, invest in an area that you already have knowledge. And the track record of these funds is, well, none of them went under, and the program is already ongoing since 2012. This means that there's a track record of 12 years for the funds that are in the market since that time. And we didn't have any problems with any of the funds going under. The return rates are not the ones that can be expected in the US. Well, the Portuguese economy is not that strong as the US is, but and the funds will need to invest at least 60% of the money that they have in Portuguese companies. So it's mandatory for those funds to invest the money here in Portuguese companies. This basically means that the funds will more or less accompany the Portuguese returns. So it's not the comparable to what you can eventually expect from the US, but it's not negligible, and it needs to be factored in. And there's a lot of ways that funds do distribute the dividends. Some do the distribution all at the end. Some do the distribution every year. So this varies quite a lot. It's I would say that the majority of the clients that we have do go down the investment fund route. In practical terms, how can a golden visa be obtained? The first step, as in almost any procedure in Portugal, obtain an IF. Obtain the Portuguese tax number, because without a Portuguese tax number, you cannot own a bank account, you cannot open a company, you cannot invest in a fund. So the first step in any procedure in Portugal is obtain an IF, obtain the Portuguese tax number, and then the rest will follow, like opening a bank account. And in the meantime, usually clients, if they go down the investment fund route, will be discussing the situation with the funds that they want to invest. And then it's the rest of the procedure is us submitting the documentation online via the AMA's web portal. In this portal, we need to organize all the documents, we need to submit it, and then we need to wait for the process to be approved. The usual documents are, of course, the NIF that I did mention, the passport, the proof that the investment was done, and the declaration under oath that the applicant will keep the investment here, because one thing that should be pointed out is that the investment will be at least locked in for 5 years. So that money cannot be moved within those 5 years. Criminal records. This is one other key aspect, is that the criminal record from at least the country of nationality, so the country of passport, and if the applicant is residing elsewhere, let's say a US client is residing in the UK, you will need to deliver the criminal record from the UK and from the US. And the other documents like the non-debt certificates from the Portuguese tax authorities and from Social Security, this is obtained by us, and this is something that we do on behalf of the clients. So once everything is indeed submitted, then it's the waiting game, and this has been the worst part out of the program. This is something that I do like to disclose to clients because this is a process that nowadays is unfortunately taking a lot of time, and this is due to AMA's old self delays that they are having. So between the initial phase of preparing the documents and selecting the funds, our experience tells us that this takes at least 1 to 3 months, give or take. And then it's the investment execution, and this varies widely between is it a golden visa connected with a fund, is it a cultural investment, is it incorporating a company? So this varies a bit. Then we submit the documentation in this web portal of AMA. And if we have all the documents ready, well, I do have mentioned here that this is a month, but it can be less than that. Usually it's a month because obtaining a criminal record or a fresh criminal record between the time that the document is obtained and the apostilling process, this takes quite a while. This apostille process is something that confers international validity to any document that needs to be delivered outside of their own country. So let's say a criminal record from the UK, it always will need to be apostilled to have legal validity in Portugal. Then it's the fourth phase in the processing time, and this is where the bulk of the time that the process will be spent. This takes quite a long time to have the pre-approval. When I started working on the golden visas, I would say that obtaining a golden visa was between 4 months to 6 months worst case scenario. So you see now having this to 36 months, it's substantially different from the time that it took. And then once the process is pre-approved, there's a biometric data collection. The applicant and the family needs to come to Portugal. They will all have the fingerprints, the picture, and the signature collected, and the documents of the investment of the full family will need to be reassessed. And this is done locally. So let's say that you go to AIMA of Portimão. The second assessment is done locally on that AIMA of Portimão, and they will be the ones approving the process. We try to have our bookings within AIMA outside of Lisbon and Porto, the main two urban areas, because they're faster, or the final assessment of the process is faster. So this varies widely from where the process is submitted. Porto and Lisbon are slower. Let's say Algarve or Coimbra, they are indeed faster. Then once the card is approved, it's renewed every 2 years. So the card has a 2-year validity. Within that time frame of 2 years, as I did mention before, the applicant will need to stay 14 days in Portugal. This clock doesn't start ticking before, so this waiting period, this waiting time does not, the applicant doesn't need to travel to Portugal. Only after the residency permit is issued, the clock for the 14 days every 2 years will start ticking. Once the applicant reaches 5 years of having residency permit plus a caveat that I will discuss in the next slides, he can obtain the Portuguese nationality. This is a process that at the current stage is taking, I would say, around 2.5 years, give or take, to be approved. So if the end game of an applicant is obtaining the Portuguese nationality, this is a long haul process that may take, I would say, around 8 years, 8 years, 8.5 years, from the time that the process is submitted until the time that the Portuguese passport is indeed conceded. So it's not something that is immediate. It's not something that is straight away provided. It's an investment that will be within at least the time frame of 8 years. Although the applicant can remove the money after the 5 years, after the 5 years have elapsed, and this is take the money out of the fund, or for real estate investments, the ones that we cannot do anymore, but they can sell the house after those 5 years. In terms of how to speed this up. This has been something that we've been doing for our clients, and this is suing self to either obtain the biometric data appointment or to force the issuance of the residency permit. Do take notice that this only works for the first residency permit. So for renewals, this is something that unfortunately is not a possibility. But this is because of the Portuguese law basically extends the validity of all the residency titles, all the residency permits until the end of June 2025. So this was a caveat. This was something that initially we didn't perceive, that the renewals were not subject to this suing situation. But nowadays we can basically provide with a good degree of confidence that for renewals, it's not worthwhile to sue self or EMA because there's no point, as the Portuguese law does extend the validity of the residency permits until June 2025. This is not specific to golden visas. All the visas and all the residency permits are indeed extended until the mid 2025. This can be somewhat of a negative aspect, because if you want to renew the card because you need to travel to Schengen, it's a bit difficult at the current moment because there's no available bookings. But once the bookings are indeed available, the renewal will be possible. And we're still being able to do some renewals online, which is interesting because if the renewals are done online, the applicant doesn't need to come to Portugal and take the biometric data appointments again. So this varies a bit. It's nuanced. It depends on the type of investment and a lot of factors. But in some cases, we've been doing the automatic renewal online still. So suing self, it's not nice. It's some clients of ours, they decided to wait a bit to see if self EMA would speed things up and would eventually issue the residency cards. But some of them got tired of waiting and said, well, just sue the EMA because I want the card issued as fast as possible. This was a bit more, I would say, critical or relevant before the nationality law was changed, because fortunately nowadays the waiting time is indeed accounted for the nationality. But just before I do jump into this waiting time situation, suing self entails basically putting it's not a restraining order, but it's a process that it's called in Portuguese providência cautelar, and this is an urgent process that courts will need to basically decide fast, and the appeals are, I would say, within 3 months, the situation is sorted out to obtain either a booking or to obtain the order to issue the residency card. And in some cases, it does compensate to sue EMA because, well, it does speed things up. Regarding the recent changes in the nationality law, and the reason why some clients do not wish to sue EMA. Well, the main reason is the clock for the nationality starts ticking since the time that the process was submitted. So instead of starting the clock at the time of the first residency permit, when it's issued, the clock starts ticking at the time that the process is submitted. And this is highly advantageous because, well, before applicants, and rightly so, were seeing the waiting time as just wasted time. This is not the reality anymore. And this indeed is something highly beneficial for our clients. What we are doing in our law firm is the following. We are testing the waters because this is a recent law that was approved. And for clients that are somewhat in the limbo, we are requesting a certificate of accounting of residency time within EMA. This is a separate procedure that can be requested with EMA. It entails a booking. It takes a few months, like 3 or 4 months to obtain that booking and the certificate. But I would say that the first certificate that we requested is going to be issued around mid-November, and we will be 100% sure that EMA is applying this law. And if EMA is applying this new law, then the nationality department will need to apply it as well, because to obtain the Portuguese nationality, what the IRN or the People's Registry in Portugal does is communicate with EMA and state, well, I have this applicant here. This applicant wants the Portuguese nationality. How long does he have a residency permit here? So it's a question that one department of a public borough does to another one. And if EMA is, well, basically informing us, the lawyers of the applicants, that that person has a residency permit in Portugal for, let's say, 5 years and a half, then it will provide exactly the same information to the People's Registry when they ask. So I would say that eventually in the dream team, we can do an update on this situation, because around November, we will know for sure that if this law is indeed being applied. In terms of other things to cover, how's the timeline situation in for our clients, for instance? All the processes that applied in 2021, they are all approved. Everyone got their biometric data appointments done, and everyone is receiving the card. So I would say a good majority of our clients already received the cards. The family reunification procedures within EMA already of those applicants of 2021, they were dispatched already. They are basically approved, and those processes, even if submitted in 2022, and some of them in 2023, are now receiving the cards as well. So everything that connects the main applicants to 2021, it's already taken care of, and the applicants are receiving the card. And within, let's say, 1 year and a half, 2 years, they will be able to request the Portuguese nationality, although they were waiting for all this time. But one strange thing that we're facing now is that all the processes that we submitted in 2022, there's no pre-approvals yet. It seems like EMA froze the pre-approvals of the processes submitted in 2022. So this is somewhat of an oddity. We've confirmed this with other colleagues. The majority of the processes submitted in 2022 are still without any pre-approvals. I think that this is connected with all the turmoil that EMA has had in the last few years. And the task force and things that they've done, they have not focused yet in the golden visas. But one big movement that we are seeing is that between, I would say, mid of this year until now, a lot of the pending processes from 2021, they were resolved and people are having the residency permit. And as the waiting time nowadays is accounted for the nationality, I would say that it became, again, an interesting product to look into if you wish to obtain the Portuguese nationality, because indeed the Golden Visa does offer the possibility of obtaining the nationality, of having a residency permit and not residing in Portugal. And there's not a lot of programs that do have this nuance, let's say. And I think that's about it in terms of presentation, Carl.
Superb.
Any questions that are on your end? Anything that you
I
think?
did have one. I did have one I'd like to ask you. I'll come back to that because we do have some questions. Thank you for these from our participants this evening, and I'll just include these because I think they're of a sort of general, universal nature that might be helpful to people. One is very basic. Jen, thank you for this rudimentary question. Establishing residency is different from renouncing citizenship to our home country. It's not the same as having dual citizenship. So if you don't mind, Daniel, like a very quick primer on the difference between residency and citizenship, which you showed us the steps for that. But if you could say a little bit more, and also dual citizenship and renouncing citizenship, your experience of that and whether clients do that.
So If you obtain a Portuguese residency permit and you wish to renew it until the end of days, let's say that you are planning to retire in Portugal and your end game is not the nationality. You just don't want to learn Portuguese, you struggle with the language, well, that's totally fine. You can just renew the residency permit, and that's about it. The residency permit allows you to live in Portugal, allows you to travel inside Schengen space. You can stay up to 3 months in every Schengen country. So let's say that you have a residency permit issued in Portugal, you can then travel to Spain, then you can travel to Italy, and so on and so forth. So as long as you don't exceed 3 months in those countries, you can visit as a tourist and stay there for 3 months, but no more than that. So
Yeah.
residency permit is something that allows you to live in a country legally, and usually it entails the person to be a tax resident in that country, with the exception out of Golden Visa. That's the only exception that we have. Nationality, well, you have a passport, you are a national of that country. You may live in the country or not. Me, for instance, as a Portuguese citizen, if I went to, let's say, Germany and I set up shop over there, I would stop being a tax resident here. So tax residency is not connected with citizenship. It's connected with, does that person stay in Portugal for more than 6 months or not? And the concept of tax residency is relevant to this discussion as well, I think.
Very
Um,
helpful.
in terms of the other nuances that you were describing, if it's, well, basically, if it's necessary to renounce the foreign citizenship to obtain the Portuguese citizenship. Not at all. Portugal is one of the countries that allows dual, triple, multiple citizenships. So you don't need to renounce any of the prior citizenships that you may have. We have clients with 4 passports. That's totally all right. And Portugal is not bothered with other citizenships that you may have. But this does the opposite does vary from country to country. Some countries don't like dual citizenship, and if you are requesting a citizenship in one other country, they may force you to relinquish your original passport. It's not common, but sometimes it does happen. But at least in the Portuguese perspective, we as a country do not communicate to other countries who are our nationals. So let's say that you do belong to one of those other countries that are an exception, and that other country doesn't like dual citizenship. Well, usually Portugal doesn't communicate, well, this person that is a citizen of yours is a citizen of ours as well. And because this is something that states don't like to share that much amongst them. So the majority of the situations are not communicated to the foreign state. So in terms of the Portuguese perspective, having dual or multiple citizenship, that's not a problem at all. It's something that we don't mind in Portugal.
That's really helpful. Thank you very much. I hope that helps, Jen. If it doesn't, we'll have some time with Daniel when we finish streaming onto YouTube, and we'll have some time together with Daniel. We can ask further questions. And just one more here. Hello from North Carolina. Hope you're okay, Michelle. And you and yours over there have not been too affected by the hurricanes. Question for the guest speaker. That's for Daniel. Have you assisted Americans to make a golden visa qualifying investment using retirement funds without triggering a taxable event in the US? That is leaving the retirement funds in a retirement account that makes an investment in an improved Portuguese fund? That's another good question.
Well, the funds will always need to mobilize, and will need to basically, if the client has an application abroad in the US and
Yeah.
has this $500 million dollars sitting there, well, you will need to cash out that investment in the US. We'll need to transfer the funds into his personal account in the US, and then transfer the funds from his personal account into his Portuguese personal account here. And after that, the money will be invested in an eligible fund in Portugal. So the money will always need to be mobilized from the US back to Portugal into a personal account, And after that, that money will need to be invested in a Portuguese fund. So I would say, answering straight and directly to that question, the funds will need to be mobilized, because you cannot just leave the money in the US and then say that it was invested in a Portuguese fund. And well, I'm not a tax expert in the US, but I would say that this becomes a taxable event in the US if you do cash out, take the money out, and then invest it in Portugal.
Very good. Thank you for that. And we do have a tax expert, Pedro, of course, will be
Yes.
joining us at 9 for the Dream Team session. So we have a whole panel of speakers helping you move to Portugal from 9 o'clock in about what? Just under an hour's time. So rejoin us then if you want to check that. Michelle, it's a great question. And yeah, I mean, otherwise, if you had a fund, you could just keep promising it everywhere, couldn't you, all over the world without
Yeah.
drawing it down? I imagine most states want to see the color of your money, as it were, to
And
activate the system.
I think that one key clarification needs to be done. Why is this the fact? Because the way that the government has strategized the Golden Visa is to help and assist the Portuguese economy.
Yes.
Therefore, the money needs to be entering the Portuguese economy. It needs to
Yep.
be put into circulation here. And that's why uh, you're not allowed to request loans to do the investments. And this was quite a common question at the time of the Golden Visa for real estate investments. Some clients were saying, well, I'm eligible for, I don't want to move a lot of money from the US because, well, it's sitting there, it's producing more money. And can I get a loan and obtain the real estate investment or the fund investment? That's not a possibility, because if you are requesting a loan via a Portuguese bank, you're not putting any more money into the Portuguese economy. You just, well, as banks do create money out of thin air when they are doing loans, basically, you're not putting any money into the Portuguese economy. You would just be having a bank requesting the central bank to have this loan done. So no fresh money would enter in the Portuguese economy. And that's why the money needs to be mobilized into a Portuguese account and then channeled to the investment. And this is the main reason. It's to assist the Portuguese economy.
Very good. And that's a really good insight, basically, into the nature of the beast that is the Golden Visa that we're talking about, in its current form, of course, as well, because that's
Right.
what this is all about tonight, is a catch up on the current format of the Golden Visa and the criteria involved. One more from me, if I may, because there was a
Yes.
difference, wasn't there, on the cultural investment, which seems to be half the investment of other types. There's 250,000
Yes.
euros for cultural investments. And you mentioned that it had needed to be an improved of investment. Is that pre-approved, as in there are a number of cultural projects that are already have been chosen by the
Well,
government and they're attracting investment into those? Or is it something you can put forward and have approved by the government thereafter?
the word investment for the cultural situation is probably misleading, because it's a donation.
Yes,
Uh,
okay.
the majority of the processes are indeed donations, and this needs to be a project that is ongoing in Portugal, or that will be created in Portugal, and it needs to be approved by the correct ministry department. This is usually an assessment that is pre-done, so before the person does the donation, this is scrutinized before, and if it's approved, then afterwards the donation can be done. Pardon. It's not as appealing, I would say, to other investments, because, well, it's a donation. Instead of you getting some money back at the end of your investment, you're just doing a donation. But for the particular, pardon, for the people connected with arts, with cinema, with some types of areas, this may be highly interesting, because it may have some returns that are not as visible as just the donation. So in some specific areas, especially in cultural projects, this may be interesting to avenues to explore, but it's a very type of uh, the different client from the investment fund, I would say. The
I understand
investment
that.
fund client is not the cultural client. Let's call it that. The way that they structure the line of thought is completely different.
And hence it being a smaller amount of money,
Correct.
still significant, of course, but a smaller amount,
Correct.
and perhaps better lent towards the philanthropic migrant into Portugal, somebody who loves the culture already and might want to invest in a particular part of the arts or culture scene as a forward sort of paying it forward philanthropic investment of that kind, not the traditional investment. Thank you for clarifying that. And finally, then, Matt, thank you for this. Besides Daniel's cost, what are the application fees? Do you want to say something about costs, please, Daniel, to close?
Yes. Um, the costs of SEF or AIMA, I still call it SEF. It's going to be a long time before I adapt to AIMA. The first residency permit costs around 6,300 euros. So it's an FT upfront price that AIMA does charge. And this is per residency permit. So let's say that you have a family of four. This entails around 25,000 euros for the first residency cards. Then the renewal of the cards is half of this. So let's say 3,100 euros, give or take, round numbers. And each renewal phase, then you will need to pay those fees to AIMA. So it's the costs are way different from D7s, D2s, and other types of visas. Well, because the government they've decided to put the costs way higher. One thing that I'm not particularly happy about the fees is that they put the fees high, but there's no fast track, and this is something that usually the applicants do not like. Is that, well, I'm paying a substantial fee on this one. I would like to have a fast track on the process, but that's unfortunately not the reality. So the fees are 6.2.3K for each residency permit from the starting of the procedure, and then half of that for renewals.
Okay, thank you for that indication on government fees there. I'm going to stop streaming over to YouTube now. So thank you if you joined us on YouTube, and consider becoming a member of Expats Portugal at expatsportugal.com, and then you can join us for this session and hang out with Daniel, which is exactly what we're going to do now. And we might be able to twist Daniel's arm a little bit to answer some other legal questions as well. So just stopping the transmission on YouTube. So that's closed there. Daniel, great presentation, really good, really concise, and a really great update. So thank you very much for being here tonight, and thank you for the questions from our Zoom audience.